Good morning. It's Friday at about 10. 2.5 minutes past. 3 minutes? I'm on. Oh, thanks for dropping in right at the start. I really appreciate it. Oh, yeah. What you're seeing are paper towels because the stuff I'm working on is under them. Let's see what it is. Here. So this is the fuselage. There we go. That's the fuselage of the Savoia. I got it primed. And the primer, it looks like it's okay. What I was especially concerned about was the nose, where there was a piece of the sprue attached to it, but it looks like I got that okay. The inside is not too bad. Yeah, it looks like it came out all right. As far as that goes, I'm going to have to be careful when I paint this. I'm just noticing that the gun ports here really need like a. It looked orange, but it's actually the color. The color of the plastic is red, but for some reason it comes across as orange. And it's kind of an orangish red, but yeah, I don't know why it does that. I'm not sure why the camera does that to the color. So there's two things about this. One is, okay, there's a thing there. There's a little bit of plastic here that wasn't where the sprue is attached. It's just that needs to come off. I was just noticing it. I didn't see it. I just noticed it as I ran my finger across it. So the plastic of the model is kind of an orangish red, but on camera it comes across as quite orange. So there's three things about this now. One is I need to get that little bit of that little bit of plastic there. The other is I'm noticing that the primer didn't get into the gun ports. So when I paint this, when it's sprayed red, the Italian red, that's the same color as the engine compartment, I'm going to have to be careful to make sure I get it in there. So I could potentially paint them like dark gray or something, but I think I don't want them highlighted, but I just need to make sure that I got the paint right down onto it. And the other is the inside of it. It's all set. All right, congratulations. That's really good. The plane is supposed to be made out of wood, and so the inside of this is going to be painted the color of the wood, which is the same color as the bottom part of the fuselage. So I'll be doing that today. I'll just be brushing it on. I'm going to be putting some tape on it, though. If the brown paint gets on the outside, I'm going to have to make sure it's cleared off because I've discovered that the Tuesday. All right. So I'm not going to know how it goes because I'll be leaving on Wednesday morning early, and I won't be able to do a stream that day. So maybe you'll have several sessions in by the time I get back around the 16th. So everybody, all the characters are ready to go? No, that's something to look forward to. It'll be really cool. And I want to hear about it when I get back. Yeah, I'm going to have to remember to tape this so that the brown paint, the desert yellow, whatever, doesn't get through too much. I want to minimize the amount that I have to clean up later. You can read them, but you don't know how the characters are actually going to be played. Those are the three things there. The other The other parts are here. And these actually are ready. Well, the horizontal. Yeah, I need to. This hasn't been a staying calm week. It just hasn't. This one is actually ready to be painted the red color because there's no reason not to. These have to wait because I need to paint the stripes on them, and I decided pretty firmly that I'm going to paint the stripes on and not use the decals because it would just look a whole lot better. If the painting is done right. If the painting is a mess, then it won't look better. I suppose at that point, though, I can just sort of remove the paint and get back to this stage, the being primed stage. This bit goes on here. Sure, it still fits. Yeah, still fits okay. So this is red, the middle is white, and the leading edge is green in terms of the stripes. And I can't cement this up. Seriously. Where is my director and camera guy? I'm going to have to I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to give him a reprimand or something for failing to keep this on camera. The way this is put together is what I wanted to do is attach this and then paint the stripes on so that they would all, line up, especially the white one that goes up the middle here. But I can't because the horizontal stabilizer goes into the slot. I want to paint the stripes on before I put the horizontal stabilizer on because it's just a whole lot easier to not have to deal with the cross member. But this goes on after that goes on, so these will have to be painted separately. Fortunately, the stripe line is right along the line of attachment, right where the rudder attaches to the the vertical stabilizer. So that's another story. So what will be done today then is I'll be painting the inside of the fuselage. I'm going to try to get 2 coats on because they have to dry in between. So I'm going to do this fairly soon, fairly early in the stream, so that the paint can dry. And after the paint is drying, I can put a second coat on. And I want to put thin coats on. I found that, and I think all of you out there who do painting will find that when you're trying to get a really nice, smooth, even surface, putting multiple thin coats on it works a lot better than trying to do the whole thing at just one big thick coat. You get fewer brush marks. It takes longer because you can't just do it once, but it just turns out better. I'm going to start with this. I think the wing. If you remember from Friday, there was like a gigantic oops. It was a major oops of epic fail kind of thing. When I cemented this together, it wasn't aligned. It was side to side. The 2 parts were off by 1/8 of an inch, quite a lot. And I didn't notice that until I was putting these clothespin clamps on, and then I was successful in prying it apart, and I repositioned it and reclamped it. I'm hoping that the cement held and didn't fail. There's no reason to take these off at this point because I'm not going to be messing with this right away. I'm going to put that over there, here, way up out of the way, and be concerned about working on this. Oh yeah, one other thing. Hi, I haven't seen you here in like a while. Yeah, words just aren't working for me. I guess I'll just blame it on being old. Here, let's flip a big thing. It's been really kind of a stressful week for me. I'm not going to really talk about why or anything, but it's just been. Well, I do know. I do know why, but it's all just personal and health related and stuff. So that happens when you're old. So I think it caught up with me yesterday. Yesterday was my day off. I didn't have anything scheduled. I didn't have a stream. I didn't have any appointments. But it was just. So I'll just apologize. It just. Let's flip the seer here. Seer is having a good day. That's 4 seers in a row, 5 in a row. Oh, that's off camera. It doesn't count. 6 seers. That was definitely. Yeah, I did. I ended up early because I had one of those appointments I had to go to this week. Was just about a little after 1:00. It's like a half-hour drive plus arrive for your appointment 15 minutes early. I do believe I rambled on about that last week sometime, or maybe even earlier this week. It's your appointment is at 1:45, but you must be here 15 minutes early. So your appointment isn't at 1:45. Your appointment's at 1:30. Just say it's 1:30. Show up, but it's a ploy. It's like on time for airlines. So if you say your appointment's at 1:45, but show up at 15 minutes early, you show up at 1:30, and then you wait 10 minutes, and they come and get you at 1:40. So they get you like 5 minutes early. So it makes it feel like they were really attentive. I'm not saying that this is done on purpose. I'm just saying that this is the kind of effect it has. But if they said your appointment was at 1:30 and you showed up at 1:30, you'd be sitting there fidgeting for 10 minutes before they called you in. And then you'd say, oh, I had to wait for such a long time. I think it works. It's the same thing with airplanes nowadays. It's the on time, whether your flight leaves on time or not, is based on when they close the door. Okay, they leave the gate, they close the door of the airplane and pull away from the gate. And that's the time that they count as to whether or not your flight is on time. What they don't tell you is that after they close the door and you pull away from the gate, okay, what the on time percentages don't tell you is that you then spend 20 minutes on the runway, putting some tape on here to cover up the opening, so that when I brush the paint on it, it will get on the edges. I know it will. There's not much I can do about that. But it won't get all over the surface here on the outside. Hopefully, at least not much. And I want that to be the case because, as I discovered, the red paint is translucent. Old Brogger, hi. Ooh, say hello to Old Brogger. Thanks for dropping in. How'd your daughter's practice go yesterday? Old Brogger spends a good portion of his life driving his kids around. which is something I used to do when they were younger. There was basketball camp. My son decided he wanted to be a basketball player, but was terrible at it. Just, I can't say terrible. That wasn't a nice thing to say. He wasn't really very good at it. He got the Hustle Award, which means, well, my family has no athletic talent, just none. And we passed that on to our kids. He did run cross country and did pretty well at that, and has since run 3 marathons, which is, I don't know, I can't say I admire that. I think that's just an insane thing to do. But he's done that 3 times and survived each of them. Oh, I should do these back here too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were some previous sessions. So she's coming back from, you said, I can't remember, surgery on her foot? But she's recovering from that and getting ready for competition in 2 months. That just isn't easy. So I admire her for that. I don't know. I was talking about lack of athletic ability in my family. Oh yeah. So yeah, you drive to that, and you drive to AYSO soccer, which is kind of it's youth soccer. It's not hugely competitive. It's supposed to be kind of a friendly thing where you just learn the fundamentals. Although there were some parents who just got rabid about it. That was kind of unfortunate. The last competition of the season. I mean, it's not her last competition ever, right? Should I try to cover up those little holes? I don't think I really can. It's tiny little holes up here. I just know. Okay. So she gets the summer off, or you get the summer off. What does she do during the off season? Does she like do independent practice at a rink or gymnastics or something so that she can be ready for the fall when it starts? Putting tape on here, that was a good way to waste some time without having to actually do anything. Okay, well that should help. It should help keep this clear, mostly clear. And if the paint does seep through after it gets 3 coats on this side, if paint does happen to seep through, I'll just scrape it off, I think, or sand it off, so that the red paint. Okay. So the whole team, you don't really get a rest, do you? You don't get a break from it, but she still practices, or not really practices her skating, but her moves and so on all summer. Mm-hmm. Is it indoors? It must be like an arena or something, right? The rink is indoors. But in the summer, you'd have to air condition the entire building so that it was could maintain the ice. We have one near us, an ice rink. It's I think mainly used for the same sort of thing, for figure skating and hockey practice, youth leagues, that kind of thing. But they do have open times as well. Here we go. This is my favorite brush for doing this stuff. Okay. So they're building up their leg muscles and taking off and landing. It's probably not the same as on ice because it's not as slippery, but I could see that's just really essential. So what? I carefully covered up these holes, but then there's the whole edge. Okay, and I can be careful and try to not get paint over the edge. I really should tape that. Okay, I mean, just like one slip of the brush, and I've got a blob of paint, and it wouldn't even be like a nice, smooth, even thing. It would be, how the paint, when you get it over an edge, it's not just a little bit. The edge of the brush, it pushes the paint off the brush onto the surface. So the outside of this, yeah. Okay, sorry, I really am. I'm going to take a precaution here because I know how awful it is to try to repair it after getting darker color on the red. And and here I've got tape over the edge. So I have to say that I'm being really careful and slow. I appreciate that understands why I'm not rushing this, because mistakes at this point are very costly in terms of frustration and time. You all know that. I lost over a week of sessions. I lost 4 streaming sessions when I just messed up the red paint on the engine compartment. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, there was this one little spot here. Needed to get that. Everything, I've got my glasses on there. I know it's weird, but I can see better up close without my glasses. I was wondering why everything was fuzzy. Okay, there's this little bit of plastic or paint or something here. I need to get more of whatever this was. This is for polishing auto body, like Bondo, for automotive. Here, I got this a long time ago. It holds up really well. It doesn't clog. It sands nicely. It polishes. These old sheets, these ancient sheets, actually, little bits like this still work better than the other stuff I've got. You have to look into that. Get on. maybe a modeling site, maybe an auto site. There's lots of places, but I need to find more of this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use my expensive modeling tape and not my cheap painter's tape. And I'm going to tape the edges. So I don't get paint all over the outside of it. Yeah, hopefully this will work. But it just means another like 15 minutes or something of messing around with this instead of getting on with it. And I need to trim that down some. She had good scissors. I wonder if these will work. These itsy bitsy little toy scissors. They might work here because the handles. Yeah, they actually do. Don't want the tape to be up too high. Okay. I just need to keep doing this. What I should do, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my cheap mode on. This is my don't waste stuff mode. I think I talked about that when I was a kid. It was if I got something, like even like crayons or whatever, it was be really careful with them because if you use it up, you won't be able to get any more. Which kept me from being creative or doing anything, fun. And it's like, oh, you get a chemistry set, but don't use the chemicals because then they'll be gone. I don't really know where I got that. I don't think my parents told me that. It's probably like a one-time learning thing. Like, don't waste that. It's expensive. It probably had, nothing to do with anything really. It was just an event. I'm just guessing that I had something like that when I was a kid, and I learned from that just to never waste anything because you never get it again. What's happening here? Thing, I guess. No, just some little rough spots. But there, I got cheap with the tape right here. And what I'm doing, I cut it down the center so that, it doesn't have to go far here. It just has to cover the edge. See how much tape is wasted there? Yeah. And now there's much less of it wasted here. There's still some wasted, but not as much. I'm going to do all of this, right? And then after I brush the third coat on it or whatever, and I take the tape off, it'll be, well, that was a real waste of time and tape. Or not. It might turn out to be just the right thing. Yeah, that little piece of tape I cut off just got stuck there. I'm pretty sure this is what happens, with things in general. It's like painting a room. I'm sure you've all had the pleasure of, painting a room. the prep work, if you do it right, you get the masking tape out, the painter's tape, and so that you get a really nice line on your trim. Tape all around the trim. Okay. Take the plates off, the cover plates for the outlets and switches and things. Take all of those off. Get a drop cloth, put it all over the floor, because if you're using a roller, no matter how careful you are, there's little tiny droplets of paint just spatter everywhere. It's just how it works. And I found that it takes like 2 to 3 times as long doing all of that, doing the prep work and getting ready for painting, than it actually does take to get the painting done. And then, so then you spend hours and hours taping the trim and taking the plates off and trying not to lose the little screws that hold the plates on, because then you won't have them when you want to put them back on. So you're very, very careful. You do all of that, and then it takes practically no time at all to actually get the painting done after all of that work. And then you have to take it all off. I found that it isn't essential, but it works better if you get the tape off before the paint is fully dry, because otherwise, sometimes, depending on the paint that you use, its consistency and everything, the tape will pull the paint away from the wall. Is this not sealing? This is one of these, if you keep at it, it eventually gets done kind of things right now. I know it feels like forever to people out there, but so it's, it's like this. It's just the time that I'm taking to do this masking. That was a fail. I failed there. There's this tiny little thing at the end. I wanted to make sure that was covered. So this is taking longer than it will to apply a coat of paint, I think. But I'm hoping that it was worth the time to prevent a problem with the painting of the outside of it later. I'll find out till I take the tape off after I'm done painting. Now I have no more excuses. I should put this away where it belongs over there, but I have to reach across my coffee mug to do it, and I just thought better of it. Okay, well, I can't be any more prepared than this. I wanted to show this to you. No, let me get the paint on. I can show it to you while the paint is drying because I can't put like a second or third coat on unless it's dry. And I have this little vortex spinner thing. It doesn't spin so much; it just vibrates. It's a it's a laboratory piece of equipment. You know, it's made to agitate, stir things up, and it works for the paint after it's been sitting for a while. Then I always do this too because there's nothing to substitute for shaking by hand. So why is this painted brown or brownish? Is because the plane, the Savoia, the real plane, is made out of wood. So I can paint up to the edge without worrying about whether I'm going over the top or not. Savoia is made out of wood, and this is the top. The inside of the fuselage is not painted red like the rest of the plane. So they painted the wood color, and this is kind of a yucky mustardy yellow color. But when when a little bit of brown wash is applied, not a lot, just a little, um, so it doesn't look so uniformly dull. It does look like wood. I achieved that look on the bottom part of the fuselage. It's a little bit translucent here. It's covering completely, but that's why I'm planning to put at least 2, probably 3 coats on to get a nice, smooth, uniform look. This is where the wing attachment is. It looks like a plastic model, but I'm actually going to paint that metallic to make it look like there is within the wooden fuselage that there was metal brackets, metal bracing holding the wing on. Since it's there and it looks sort of, it looks dumb. It's like, oh yeah, well, that's where plastic pieces came together. We did an okay job getting rid of the circles. The circles I filled in. There's no way I could have done this without the tape being there. I do believe I made the right call. This part here, where the wing brace was cemented on, is I'm going to try to make it look like it is actually metal bracing. Side. Even try to do the same thing back here. with the where the vertical stabilizer, the tail, is attached. To be terribly concerned, I'm more concerned about the surface is smooth more than anything else. Don't overbrush it. Don't do what I'm doing. Once the paint is starting to dry, leave it alone, because otherwise you'll end up with brush marks all over everything. And sometimes some of these paints take very poorly to being overbrushed. Okay, until they're dry, and it just pulls the paint it pulls itself away from the model, and creates a real bad marring of the surface. It's a thing. The wash water was underneath something and is stuck. And here, you can watch me clean my brush. There, look at all of the pigment coming out of the brush and into the water, which I spilled over there, and I need to mop up. Sacrifice this paper towel in the name of, whoa, there was a lot of water that spilled. I'm going to have to reach over and not knock over my coffee mug because it's like seeping under the keyboard. This is a multiple paper towel sacrifice. What did I? Good grief. Oh, that was a Charlie Brown thing to say. Sorry, I'm cleaning up. The inevitable mess that happens. I have to replace this now, too. It's all wet. Fortunately, I do have more paper towels. This the water gets most of it out, but not all of it. So I'm going to use the isopropyl alcohol as well, just to make sure it's clean, even though the next time I use this, I'll be using the same color. Should get more water too. Yeah. But yes, painting, I mean, it was really a good thing I put the tape around it, because I wanted to get the brown up onto the edge as much as I could, and I couldn't do that if the tape wasn't there. Just, it would have ended in tears. Clean. Put it on. This way, if I knock it over, it won't spill. Unless I knock it over so badly, which would happen if I knocked it onto the floor, and then the glass jar would shatter and I'd have broken glass and a cup of isopropyl alcohol scattered all over the cement floor. That wouldn't be good. I almost, but not quite, reached the paper towels. Clutter. This is now messed up. I'm going to replace that. Well, actually, I'm going to keep this because the next thing I'm doing is going to be sanding. But instead of watching paint dry, which we could do, I could lift the camera up a little higher so we could watch the paint dry at the same time that I do the next thing, which is to sand down the edges of the wing. Keep this in reserve. Okay. Take these off and see what I've got. Oh, and I'm going to, got this little drawer here. I'm going to put them away. You know, they fit into each other like that. Isn't that great? Yeah, they're supposed to fit. Not that great. It isn't working. If it's done right, they all fit. Like it looks like it's going to mostly work. There. No, they're in the little drawer thing. Oh, nice and neat. Just put so much stuff on the remaining surface here that there's no place to set anything. All right, here's the wing, which is not unaligned. Okay. So the front of this, I know, needs some work because the sprue, you can see where maybe you can't see the sprue here, attachment points left little bits of plastic on the wing surface. That is, it isn't contoured with the wing, but it looks like it's the cement, even though it feels rough, which is fine, because I'm going to sand that down. Looks like it's sealed things pretty well. There aren't any gaps, so if I just do the sanding, you know, just the light sanding, just to even things off, it should be okay. I'm going to just stick with the really, you know, the 1500 grit paper. And then maybe go back to this magical stuff that I have, the wet, dry, silicone, waterproof for automotive use paper later. Working on an airplane here, so maybe I'll talk about aeronautic technology. I think I've done this before, but I want to talk about how when something is new, like airplanes, right? Airplanes were new starting in 1903, I think, when the Wright brothers claimed that they had the first heavier than air flight, and they went like 100 and some feet on their first flight. It was and it moved so slowly that I forget who did the first flight, whether it was Wilbur or Orville. Well, one was on the plane and the other one was alongside. And the one alongside was actually able to run fast enough to keep up with the plane while it flew hardly any distance at all. To put it in perspective, it was, an American football field or a real football pitch. It was less than half of one of those. And I think it was maybe like 6, 7 feet in the air. Granted, it was in the air, it wasn't on the ground. It took off horizontally and lifted up above the ground. So it was truly a flight. I think later on they got like 1,000 feet, which is 3 football pitches. So that was pretty significant progress. But yeah, the brother who wasn't on the plane ran alongside of it. Not exactly. Well, it was low and slow. But like 12 years later, you had biplanes going at 200 some miles an hour, circling each other with mounted machine guns, shooting at each other, and troops on the ground and things. Just huge step forward. This is massive and rapid advance in the capabilities of this thing that flew only as fast as somebody could run, for less than half the length of a football pitch. And then 12 years after that, you had planes flying across the Atlantic nonstop, traveling in the Pacific. There were even passenger planes, not very comfortable, but not terribly safe. But you could fly like across the country, across Europe. And then 12 years after that, we had airplanes destroying entire cities and carrying passengers all over the place. And, so if you look at at 40 years onto the Wright brothers flight, and think about just the tremendous changes that happened in air flight technology. It was just massive. So this stuff is actually coarser grit than the other thing I was using, but it polishes better. I got that out. It's where the sprue was. I can feel the tiniest little bit. Can't even see it, but I can feel the tiniest little bit of irregularity there. The next part, this moves along pretty quickly. It's just smoothing out the front surface where the cement kind of roughed up the surface of the plastic. Okay. It was done, but I didn't think it extended on the bottom, but it's the screw mark is on the bottom of the wing as well as the top. Yeah, I know. So you went from that to the piston engines, planes, passengers flying kind of routinely. A lot of the movement forward. It's interesting between the wars, aviation, made some pretty big advances, but they were all civilian. And then we decided, well, it was time to start killing each other again. We hadn't done that in a while. And then massive advances due to the military application of air power in terms of, piston engine, and then the development of jets. And jets were amazingly inefficient. I mean, just gobbled up huge amounts of fuel. The thrust that they produced actually wasn't very much at all. Like several thousand pounds of thrust, way, way less than the weight of the plane that took them forever to take off. In fact, with the bigger jets later on, the bombers, they, in order to take off with a full fuel and bomb load, they had to attach little rocket pods to them in order to get them going fast enough to take off. But those were all developed, for military purposes during the World War II. And then jet technology, because he just flew so much faster at higher altitudes and so on, that piston engines, they were actually in some ways easier to maintain. I want to take this slowly because I don't want to mess up the surface of the wing. I don't want like a divot on it or something. But there's a visible line there, but I don't think it's a gap. It's just this is a different color where it was cemented together. I don't feel it. I'll have to see what it looks like when it's. I'm sure what's happening here. Not quite aligned, I think, is what the problem is. The just the tiniest little bit of misalignment. Because when I run my thumbnail down like this, I can feel it. Run it the other way. Yeah, I think that that they're not perfectly aligned. They're really close, but not quite. Yeah, it's disappearing here. Yeah, this is requiring more more sanding than I had expected due to some minor misalignment apparently in the upper and lower surfaces of the wing. But I can see what happens. You can see a white line there, a little bit of a white line. Yeah, that's one edge above the other, but then it disappears here, nice and smooth where I sanded it off. I don't feel them. Maybe there's a misalignment on the wingtip as well. Yeah, it's all the way around. That's unfortunate, but it's slow, but not difficult to fix it. I wonder if this stuff will. What is it? It's not even the end of the month yet, is it? We got another day yet. Okay, I'm going to get a little impatient here. Use the 800 grit paper. Let's find it. Get some fresh stuff. Hold on while I look. Because as I was working on this, there's just way more of a discontinuity along the leading edge than I thought there was. There's just more than I thought. And I can't leave it. Grit. $800. Well, I'm going to do this and then I'll end up polishing it more at the end. But at the rate this is going, given that there is more of a flaw there than I had expected by quite a lot, it's very slow coming off. And so I will slightly more aggressively sand it. Hi, Enforcer. It's going okay. The wing here is just requiring a lot more work than I thought it would to get it right. They're off by like a fraction of a millimeter from the top and the bottom. And when I run my finger over it, I can feel it. And it's the kind of, if I can feel it when it's just painted a glossy color, it's going to show up. I have to do a fair amount of sanding on the leading edge of the wing here to get it even. So it's just taking longer than I had thought it would by a lot. But it's the leading edge of the wing. It's, an very, very highly visible part of the plane. And a flaw there is just going to jump way out on it. Yeah, everything I do on these models, I shouldn't say everything. There have been a couple of surprises where something just worked. It happened with the Apollo model early on when I was putting putting some little doors on the escape hatch, the escape tower. There's just little doors that open at the top of the escape tower, and there was no attachment point. I mean, the spot where the cement and had to attach one part to the other was tiny, tiny, tiny. And I thought, this is not going to be. I can't even. When I tried to test fit them, I couldn't even hold the parts in place. It was that difficult. And I said, well, can't finish unless it gets started. So it was one of those, let's give it a try. And I got the contact cement out. And, put it where it needed to go. And they stuck. It was just a shock. They not only stuck, but they stuck in just the right place too. So that was a rare event in the saga of relaxing whatever I'm doing here for Dice and Dungeons. But this is a more typical event, which is just taking a whole lot of time trying to sand it down without screwing up the surface terribly much. Up here. They're slightly misaligned. It's not really a surprise, I guess. They're like 9 inches long. And there weren't any very good pins. Spending time putting things back together. Some people really like organizing. It can be really relaxing. It's kind of a low pressure thing, and it's tedious. And you can drink tea and watch television or stream or whatever, or chat with people while you're doing it. But it also can just be really frustrating because it's like, oh, I'm done with this, but now I'm not done with this, right? A couple of years ago, well, let me just put it this way. I tend to be kind of a pack rat around souvenir kind of things. So as the kids were growing up, they would all make these drawings, or they would bring a test home with an A+ on it, or report cards and participation trophies from doing stuff. Oh, yeah. I was about to tell a story about it, organizing, and it's all physical stuff. I have a really big downside of electronic storage, and it really is a huge downside, is that until you get your notice saying you have run out of storage space, in which case you can just buy more, right? Everybody makes it easy to just buy more of something. That until you get to that point, it's just there. It's not like clutter in your house. So if you never filed any of your documentation, for whatever reason you've got it, you've got piles and piles, and you look like a classic hoarder. But with electronic stuff, you can't see it. It's gone, right? It's stored somewhere. Nowadays, it's not even stored on your computer. It's stored in the cloud often somewhere, which always makes me a little nervous, but that's a whole nother thing. So, yeah. And then it gets to the point you can't find anything. 27,000. Yeah. Yeah, it tells you how much you have. That's always, it doesn't make you feel any better about it. But it's invisible, you know? And then at some point, it's so overwhelming. It just gets really frustrating, even thinking about cleaning it out. Got tried to organize my stuff. Like I create all these folders for saving emails so that I can find it, so I can, if I'm looking for something related to doing taxes, it's not stored along with family photos or card memberships to the museum or something like that. But now I've got a proliferation of folders. And what I've done, mm-hmm, well, yeah, sometimes something you think is going to be efficient turns out not to be. A gap there. I'm going to have to look at this after it's primed. I may end up having to do some filling. There's always something, right? Something can't be done, but I think there's a little bit of a gap here. Tip of the wing that may or may not show where the cement didn't grab it quite. Okay, well, that took longer than I thought it would because there was an issue there that I didn't know was going to be there in terms of misalignment of the parts. I think it's, I don't want to rush it. Okay. Just, I don't want to say it's done when it's not. We've sort of done the opposite. I've got all these separate folders of things, of documents. And then tons of separate documents rather than combining documents, stick them in the folder, and then the folder gets so full that I can't find things. And then, email files, like we had some, cement replacement here a year or so ago. There's important parts like the estimate and the final invoice, right? And then there's oh yeah, I got your email, I'll get back to you. And there's maybe 5 of those, and why are those saved? But then it's just easy because it's related to the topic, to throw it in the topic folder. It's very easy to do that. But then trying to find anything in it later is next to impossible because suddenly there's 45 emails that have nothing in them other than saying, I got your email. At least this is giving plenty of time for the paint to dry. I was wondering what I would end up doing today, because I figured this would take the better part of 15 minutes. Well, I don't have to worry about that, do I? You think there'd be a market for that? I know that there are some people who actually can. Um, it's not like making it full living, but if you have a talent for it and you get to be known as like a star DM, I guess you can actually you can monetize your talent. You can always do one or two and see what it's like. If it's something that you don't like, then you don't have to do it anymore. But if it's something you do like, then you can promote it and get word of mouth people to word of mouth people. You get word of mouth referrals. Maybe make something of it if it's something you really enjoy. Well, the thing, yeah, I mean, games should be free, but on the other hand, I can tell which side is done and which isn't because there's such a big difference. If someone is willing to pay for it, what that means really is that they can't find a friend or somebody to just play along with them, and they want to have the experience. Or sometimes you just do such a good job, you know, that they would like to have the experience of working with someone who is really really good at it. I don't know. If someone is, let's just say, if someone is willing to pay for it, then it's probably worth charging for it. No idea how much you could get paid for it. But in some ways, payment is a recognition of talent. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with, you know, having talent recognized. Right here on the, okay, I think I've got that. There was a sprue attachment right on the point of the leading edge. Would be for like a one shot. I don't know. I would go ahead and charge, if you're going to be playing for maybe 4 or 5 hours, think about your hourly rate. I would say just $20 a piece, something like that. I don't think that that's too greedy, because you want your hourly wage to be pretty decent, right? Okay, think about it that way. You don't have to charge by the hour; you can charge by the game, but estimate how long the game would be, and then figure how much you would need to charge for it to be kind of worth your while in terms of what you would be making otherwise, or something similar for entertainment, right? Hand cramp. It comes from just holding this in one place for so long. This is taking a little longer. This little bump here is where the sprue was attached on this side of the wing. Yeah. Well, you've DM'd before, so it's not like you'd be doing something you've never done. I think if someone is willing, and you need to let them know ahead of time that what you're really interested in is not just like intense battle after battle after battle, or rigid rule enforcement, that kind of thing. If your style, if that's what they're looking for, and some people will, they're going to be wanting, I just want to get into fights, and I want everything to be just perfectly in accordance with the rules. You can let people know that isn't how your games go, that your games are role-playing games, and in order to enjoy it, they need to be prepared to become their characters as they're playing. As long as there's truth in advertising, if people know what to expect and what they're going to get, and then they get what they expect. That's how it should work. Mm-hmm. Really? Then I think, why not? What have you got to lose? You've got a friend who's willing to get it started and to help. Actually, that's a really helpful thing. Now that you mention it, is because they can help model for the other players the kind of behavior that you've got in your game, which is, the importance of the role playing. It's good to not be arrogant about it and to have some doubts, but it's also good to just try things and see how they work. I can say that speaking from the experience of not trying things and seeing how they work, and then noting later what I was missing. I've always been, even with this, it's like, I don't know. I don't know how to sand the leading edge of the wing. I don't know what I'm doing. That's why this is not a how-to show. This is I don't know what I'm doing. Let's find out kind of stream. So it's like, well, I know for sure. One thing I know for sure is that it doesn't look very good with the edges not being smooth. So something has to be done about it. Yeah, why not? And why not try to make a little bit of money doing something you really like, as opposed to making a little bit of money doing something you really, really don't like? Give it a try. And then set up the expectations in terms of, as long as you're clear about that. How well developed are their characters? You might just start from scratch. You could even do that. Say, we're going to start by talking about different character types. different roles that a player could play, because you might get people who have never really done it before, or even if they had, sometimes the rolling for stats. The rolling for stats thing can actually be a fun part of the game development, and so the group gets together and they decide what they want to be. As a DM, you can help guide that so that the group is balanced. You don't want, I don't know, it might be kind of fun to have a group of five paladins all together. That could be pretty weird. It might be interesting. But I was thinking, you could guide them to have a balanced group, roll for stats, come back next week and tell everybody how, what your character development has been like. Start out slow. Especially if you're playing with people who, are either really experienced in role playing or had never done it before. And helping to guide people to keep, remember who you are, not as a player, but as a character in the game. I bet you could do a really good job of that. It's like, okay, it's not like, what would you do right now? It's think about the characteristics, the backstory, the history of your character. What would they do as a character in the game, not you as a player? We remind ourselves about that all the time, even though we've been playing our characters for way over a year. Is like, what would Nines, the Tabaxi Bard, do in this situation? Even though it would be like a really dumb thing to do. Not like, you haven't missed anything. I'm still sanding the leading edge of the wing. I guess what I was saying is, if you've got players, especially who haven't done the role playing in a heavy way before, it'd be interesting as a DM, not just run the game, but to coach people to remember that they are their characters and not themselves. Okay. So that they're playing their character in the game and not themselves as a player. So it's like, I know, and you can, as a player, you can step back and kind of meta game and think this is how it should be done. But as a character, you might be in the game and you might know something as a player, but not as a character, and just, you can help coach people to, be their character rather than just a player. And if that's what people are looking for, yeah, give it a go. Especially if you've got a friend who said they would help you out. Okay. But here, yeah, I just want to make sure this is even. Back here where the ailerons go, and it's not. I can tell by the way it's standing, but it's coming. It's coming. Ooh, it was bad. It's a very, very thin, fragile piece there, and I caught it with my finger. You probably didn't hear it because the microphone filters out sounds. But I almost broke off a little corner here. So as a DM, especially one who plays a role-playing specialty, I think it would be fun to just coach people through how to play the game as characters and not just as players playing a game. You'd probably be really good at that because of your emphasis on character development. And what would you, Hildy, the gnome, do in this situation? Not you as a player, but what would they do? Yeah, some DMs, our DM, Alexis, is amazing with voices. Just has all of these different NPC characters we run into and so on. But we put on a show, okay? So it's important. If you're just playing the game, and you're in character, as long as you can, be convincing about that, this is what the character is like. You don't have to be a voice actor to be successful at it. Well, I'm almost done with this, at least the first go. And after I'm done with this, the first go, I'm going to put a second coat of paint on the inside of the fuselage and exercise my left hand, which is cramping up from holding it. And I'm going to come back to this and go over it one more time. Before I prime it. Okay, there. This is trash. This is something I want to keep. Put this out of the way. Switch this back. Yeah, you can see that the paint is pretty splotchy. Okay, and that's why there's going to be a second and maybe even third coat on it. Even though I painted it, pretty evenly as much as I could, and then there's a couple of spots like here, just from that angle where it's not painted at all. So I need to be careful to do that when I paint the second coat. Get that on now, and it's like 11:30. If it dries for an hour, I might even be able to get a third coat on. What I will be doing is, in order to keep moving this model along, I'm going to get the ailerons out. The ailerons are the control surfaces that go here, and get those prepped and test fit them to see if they, to make sure that they fit okay. And then I might be able to prime them and the wing. So another thing I would like to do is to show you So I talked about painting the stripes, and the stripes are Italian, so they're white, red, and green. The red is the body color of the plane, so there's all of it is red. I mean, that's the way that is. And I've got some good white paint, white spray paint that I have from testing different paints for the Apollo model. So I've got some good white paint, and I found a spray can of green paint. It's British Racing Green, which is not exactly Italian, right? British Racing Green that I bought 1,000 years ago. Feels like it anyway. A long, long time ago. For a model of, I don't know if you're racing fans or not. I think it was in 1965. The first rear engine car. It was a modified Formula One car. Came to Indy, and Jim Clark drove it and raced it and won the race. It was a huge breakthrough thing. It was widely popular in Detroit because it was powered by a Ford V8. So a small engine, 289 cubic inches. In fact, it was the same size engine. What's up with that? The same cubic inch displacement as the engine in our Ford. 289 engine. This one produced like a whole lot more horsepower. Okay. Just super tuned up. Well, making a short story long, pretty good at that. I bought a model of it. And I actually had one when it first came out back in the 60s. That was another one of those nostalgia things, is I had built that model that came out to honor the Ford-powered rear engine turned Indianapolis level racing, that kind of racing on its head, totally changed the nature of the vehicles that were being used in the races. Just completely practically within just a couple of years. So I bought this model because it's a very beautiful car, actually. The original is in a museum here in Michigan, the Ford Museum in Dearborn Village, and it's there because it was powered by a Ford engine. The original car is still there. I even went to the museum and took pictures of it so that when I built the model, thinking that I actually would get around to building the model, that I could get the features right, because there are certain things on the model kit that are not at all like the real thing. For example, the engine exhaust on the model is chrome plated. Well, it was a race car. It wasn't chrome plated. It was actually painted yellow. The exhaust was painted yellow to match the yellow stripe. It was a green car with a yellow stripe, British Racing green with a yellow stripe. It looked actually over there. I can see the model of it right over there. It was molded in green when I built it as a kid. Of course, I just put it together. I didn't bother painting it, but I was going to make it look really good. So I got British Racing green spray paint that I was going to use to paint it once the body was done, before I put, the windshield and stuff on. So one story is that I had this historic model. It's actually, I think, one of the originals. I don't think it was a reprint of the model that came out in the 1960s. And I bought one because I was going to build it, except a whole lot better than when I was a kid. And I never did. I think it might have been like a semi-finalist for what would I build after the Apollo. Actually, what would I build after the submarine? But where was I going with this? Well, I'm filling the time by telling a story and wandering off onto other stories. But yeah, I took pictures of it just to make sure that when I did build the model, which I never did, and it's still sitting there, and at the rate that model building is happening here, it'll not ever get built. So like the model, like I said, the exhaust is chromed on the model, and that was definitely not the case. It was painted the same color as the racing stripe on the body of the car, the same yellow. The interior seat was leather. It was kind of a reddish brown. So I have that. The decals on the model actually match the sponsorship decals on the car pretty well. They captured that pretty well. They probably got paid for it or something. I'm not sure. But that, you want to keep watching paint dry, can do that for a bit. Thing. I think I've got it pretty well. I'm going to reach in here. I am going to move the paint drying out of the way here. The thing I'm going to be doing next See you later. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, I actually did some painting today and some sanding. Yeah, relaxing, way more sanding than I thought I was going to be doing, but nonetheless. I'm getting the ailerons so that I can test those and test fit them, but I totally stopped talking about what it was I was going to be talking about, which was green, because the stripes on this are painted. These have the same part number. No, 9 and 10. I need to keep them separate because they're not the same. The way I'm going to do this, and I've tried this before, and I actually succeeded until I screwed up, is I'm going, in order to keep them separate, 9 and 10 go on different sides of the wing, is I'm going to get a piece of cardboard, like this one, and label it 9 and 10. But having picked this up, it doesn't look so on a screen. When I'm looking at it, it looks almost black. But this is British Racing Green. And I tested it on a piece of cardboard that's white to simulate, in fact, it's the same color as the primer because this has been primed over. And I taped it so that I wouldn't get paint everywhere. There. And what the whole point of this was, the whole point of everything that I've been babbling about is this green going to work as the stripe, the green stripe on the plane. Because if it does, then I've got the green paint, and if it doesn't, I'll have to find it. I can see now, though, that there's too much blue and not enough. Yeah, there's too much blue and not enough yellow. Here's the decal sheet. And the way this works is the decals are supposed to create the white and the green stripe. This is for the bottom of the floats. This is the cheat method. Instead of painting it, if you can't paint the floats the way they're supposed to look, because they're kind of brown on the bottom and red on the top, then you can use the decal instead. And this is the decal for the tail. So the white, I've got white. That's not a problem. But the green, I was kind of hoping that the British Racing green would work, but it needs to be much lighter and yellower. Some light green. I wonder if did I keep a test patch of it? Hold on. Oh, leg got stiff there. Light green. But I think I should have tested this too, and I didn't. Well, I know the British Racing green isn't going to work. So there's that. I know I had a test patch of the light green earlier on because I was testing different colors for the make a new one. But I'm going to have, I think this is going to be like, this is too dark and too blue. You know, it's green, so it probably could pass, but it's not the right shade. I think this is going to be too yellow. And I'm going to have to find I'm going to have to go to the hobby store or something and try to find one that works. Probably have a brush on, but, you know, and it's not very much. It would be like, why bother getting an entire new paint thing? Supply of paint. Just for a couple of little stripes. But brushing on is just not the same. This green here is pretty close. It's called sick green. It's called sick green, but it's not. It's a very nice green. I use it pretty often. Light green, this light green is really close. It's Viejo light green. But it's not at all the same as this light green. So if this light green had been that light green, it would be really close. So I've got a brush on paint that would work. If I knew how to use an airbrush, if I could do that, maybe I would learn how to do it just for the stripe. Set this somewhere where it's not going to fall. What I was going to do was use that piece of cardboard that I just threw on the floor and label it so that I could keep 9 and 10 separate from each other. This is pretty exciting. I'm starting to bang into things and knock them over. Usually this kind of clumsiness doesn't happen for another half hour. Such a day. These parts are going to, that's the British Racing Green. This is really old. I bought it ages and ages and ages ago. And I'm going to hang on to it now because if I ever do that model, I'll have it. What I need is a felt tip pen that actually works. And I don't have that here. Uh, 9 and 10. There. And that's where I'm going to put them with a little bit of tape to hold them down while I prime them, and then later on also while I paint them. Do one at a time. I was doing that with the radiator parts on the engine mount. I kept them labeled the entire time. And then right at the very end, I pulled them off. Pulled them off the cardboard after they'd been taped on and lost track of which was which. It was just dumbness. It wasn't even clumsy or anything. It was just like, oh, I'm not thinking at the moment. There it is. So this is 10. And the way I'm going to do this, the different sound that you can't hear. So I'm going to get this prepped. This is good. The sprue is on the little hinge thing. It's on the tab that goes into the model to attach it, which means I can just file it off and not have to worry about scratch marks. That happens very rarely. It can just happen quickly like that. Right, this is number 10. So if I'm paying attention to the instructions at all, fluttering around here and trying not to break things. If the wing, ooh, that's the bottom, okay. That was important to note that this is bottom up, that number 10 goes on here and it fits. There, look at that. So this is actually ready to be primed because it fits just as it is. There's a little bit yet of plastic on here. That shouldn't be here. It didn't get away in the way of fitting, but it's annoying. Do this when I'm spray painting. Use spray cans because that's my cheat because of my lack of talent with an airbrush. But these parts are really small, and when they're going to be painted, they just get thrown around. And what I need to do, I want to wash it a little bit. I've got fingerprints all over it. That's 10. This is 9. I'll saw these off so that I don't break it off into the model and create a disaster. Okay. What's left on here is a little hatch that goes up into the nose of the cockpit and a little hatch that goes over the engine compartment. Why those are separate, I do not know, but they are. You say, why did I bother washing it when I'm just picking it up? And because I just did. Why do things once when you can make a mess of it and do it twice? Okay, after I'm done with this, what I mean by done with this is just getting the little sprue marks off the little tabs and test fitting it. I'm going to have to take a less like a 5-minute break. It's one of those little short bio breaks that will make it easier to do the last bits of the stream. For me, I don't know about for you, but for me, it will be much easier if I take a really quick break here and come back and decide what to do next. This is probably the fastest parts prep ever done, certainly on this stream. This is 9. This goes on this side. That also fits. But what's going to happen here is that I'm going to prime these, and when I prime them, that'll be covered over. And so I'm going to think ahead. This almost but didn't quite work. I'm going to take that and put a 10 on here. Probably as unnecessary to label these, but I'm going to, which means that after I'm done painting, I can take those off and see which number is which. That was my cleverness for the day. Okay, so now I've got the ailerons, and these are ready to be primed. None of this is going to be, most of this is not going to be painted until I get the correct green, because as I said, I'm going to paint the stripes on the tail and the wingtips. I'm going to paint those on instead of using the decals. I know that they will look better that way. Oh, this is ready to be primed as well. Put that right up here and just use the same. I don't need to label this because it's just one thing, right? I am going to put a little bit of tape on just to hold it, because even that fairly large piece um, can be blown around by the spray. Right. So this is ready to be primed. I'm not going to make the stupid joke that I always make. Here I am not saying that thing that I was going to say that I'm not going to say. There it is. Yeah. And I'm going to then do the same thing I did before. I don't want to cover this whole thing with paint. I just want a little rectangle. I'm going to use the cheap paint, the cheap tape. And I'm going to do a test of the light green to see if it's even potentially usable. If I recall, though, it's just way too yellow, but I don't recall perfectly, so give that a test as well. So this here, let me show you what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, geez, I really need to just stop touching things for the moment. I'm going to stop touching things for the moment. And I'll be back in just a few minutes. I'm not going to bother putting the brake thing on. Here, let's watch paint dry. Watch paint dry, and I'll be right back. That wasn't too long. Yeah. If you look at this now, you can see that the second coat did a pretty good job. It looks fairly even. There's still some irregularities in it. There's a blemish here. There's just this little lump there. I don't know why that's there, and it really is annoying. It's like a pinpoint of a bump, and And now it's gone. And I hope that the next coat of paint covers that tiny little flaw. I'm not sure what that was. I do seem to have painted the spots that hadn't been painted before. Yeah, it's coming along okay. So I'll be putting a third coat of paint on that. Probably in about like a half hour. This is going to be used to test this light green. And I'm going to just set this mount. I have really done a great job of making a huge clutter mess here. I mean, this is an impressive mess. Wow. Okay. What I will do now, since I've got a little bit of time to continue moving along slowly but uncertainly, is I'm getting another piece of cardboard. The floats, the wingtip floats for the plane. These things go here. Yep, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's interesting, you know, they go out of there. 5 and 6 have to go together, and 7 and 8 need to go together because that's how they go together. But once they're put together, it looks like they're interchangeable. Once again, I'm going to just label them. This is, you start getting down to this point, and there's just a few little pieces left in the box. And you go, it's like when you're making a puzzle, you go, whoa, I really hope that the last piece is still here when it comes down to it. And there's little bitty things, okay? Like this little propeller thing there is one of those surprising details in the model that it's the airspeed indicator thing. Okay, so this is 5, 7, 8. This must be 6, but the 6 did not really appear very well here. These, the sprues are not in friendly places on these. I guess they couldn't really help it. So the way these are going to work, and I'm not sure how far I will get on these actually yet today. I'm going to try, is that just like the wingtip and a couple of other things, the sprue is right on the edge of where I don't want there to be a seam showing. These are supposed to be like solid pieces. If anything, if they were multiple pieces, they would be joined top to bottom and not side to side. They probably should have been molded that way, but they're not. I'm guessing that that once these are cemented together, that I'm actually going to have to fill in some gaps. I might have to put some filler in along the seams when it comes right down to it, and sand them down so that the seams don't show. So these are numbers 5 and 6. I will be filing these down close to, but not onto the surface, because that's all going to be done after they're put together, because I'm going to have to be sanding down the seam between the two halves. I'll show that to you in just a bit. Painting these is going to be a little bit of a challenge. This is why it came with decals. If you can see the curve here on the float, at the bottom of that curve is painted the wood color, and on the top it's red. That's going to be a challenge. I think I'm going to end up painting the wood stuff first. Okay, making sure the edge is nice and clean, and then working really, really hard to tape it, and then spray red on it, and hopefully not have too terribly much touch up later. The decal would, make it a lot easier, but it'll look like there's a decal there, and not that it's painted like it should look if it was real, which it's not. It's just a model, but it is. Yeah, these are going to require a lot of additional prep work a little bit later. You just file these down close to what will become the surface of the pontoon, the float, and then test fit them. And what I'd like to do, and maybe I will get to it, is cement them, the halves together, so that on Monday, next week Monday, I can work on, see if I need to fill in seams and stuff and get it moving along. As a reminder to everybody, I will be streaming on Monday, but then we'll be gone for a while yet again. I'll be gone from the 5th, which is Wednesday, so I won't be streaming on Wednesday. I'll be until the 16th, so I'll be gone a fairly long time. But I hope you remember that when I come back, you come back and continue to enjoy, hopefully, relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. So as I'm doing this, I'll just remind everybody that Dice and Dungeons is a group of family and friends, and we get together and run an amazing Dungeons and Dragons show. Okay, that'll fit. It'll fit. Yeah. Gonna have to clamp this nicely. Okay. This is, and it's one of those things where it just gets out of alignment. So getting this into alignment and clamped and having the gap filled. Yeah, it's one of those things, just where it's one of the things when trying to make a model that's A quality, not just B plus or C minus or whatever. It just takes a lot of fiddling, because these floats are they're an important part of the model. But it's almost like a fuel tank. Okay, the seam is just in the wrong place at the wrong orientation, and it needs to disappear completely before it's painted. You really need to do what I've done here. Once they're cemented together, they're the same. So if I cement these together now, need to worry about getting them mixed up with the other ones. I'm just going to do that. Right. Stuff works kind of like a contact cement. So they say you have to put it on both sides. Get it all over my fingers. Oh my. Get a puddle. That was just not well done. What you saw was not very relaxing, making a mess with Dice and Dungeons. I need to make sure I get it right at the tip of the end here. Okay, I have to be careful with that. I was going to put this on, but I can grab these little things. The parts to stick together. Trying to get them lined up without getting cement on everything. That was bad. I just got it all over the bottom of the float. I'm going to have to polish all of that later. Bad, bad, bad. You can see I scarred the surface pretty badly here. It's always a risk. Is making a mess of things. I think that will be okay once I'll be able to polish that out, but it is something that should not have happened. Okay. It's just not, it just shouldn't have happened. But such is life on relaxing, making a disaster with Dice and Dungeons, huh? I want to make sure just moving all of that all the way out of here and getting clean stuff. Because I don't want to take a chance and make even more of a cement mess. All right. Get these done too. Put another coat of paint on the inside of the fuselage. Try not to create a disaster of epic proportions. Try to get the cement a little less of it next time. Very carefully back in the box so I don't lose the parts that are still attached. Away. Get my highly sophisticated clamp out. Carefully file this down until it's a fraction of a millimeter from the final finished surface of the float. Carefully set it aside. We'll see how that goes. And on Monday, attempt to address the issues of seams, and excess cement that has marred the surface. The upside, if there is such a thing about the mess I made, is that the surface that I marred is going to be painted with that same flat yellow-brown paint I'm using right now, and not the glossy red. And so the screw up on the surface, okay, will be less visible than if I had screwed up on a different place on the surface. So I guess I'll count that as a minor miracle. Yep, Tyson Dungeons. I'm sorry, I was just for some reason or other paying attention to the here, which I managed to screw up, and I managed to file there. I'm going to polish that now before it's too late. Just even touching the surface with the file leaves marks. I mean, just gouges. Fortunately, this stuff is really good at polishing that out. You need to get more of it, because it's way better than anything else I've been using. Well, I'm going to try this again on this side. This again, meaning cementing the two halves together without creating a disaster. I am courting disaster there by reaching over the coffee mug. Like I need to be spending the weekend. It's needed to hold it still. To spend a weekend here cleaning up the workbench. See if I can get these put together without having too much of a cement disaster. No matter how careful with these, it's just impossible to get them to align perfectly. You know, even if they've got the little tabs inside, you know, the prongs that are supposed to fit together. It's all sorts of sanding that needs to be done to get rid of the inevitable little ridge. Ever so slightly misaligned. But that's why it takes forever to do these things, to get them look right. Okay. So on Monday, I'll probably be spending like the entire stream, I'm not kidding, just getting these little floats to look okay. You know, there's going to be slight misalignments that'll have to be sanded out along the whole top and the bottom. I mean, the whole perimeter where they're cemented together. There's a couple of places where I need to polish out some problems that I created by being clumsy with the cement. I'm just putting this away. Putting away what I want to keep and throwing away what I don't. Slightly doing a slight cleanup here of the work surface before I put the third coat of yellowish brown paint on. It's getting pretty close. I can just see that there's some, you know, there's still some discontinuities. I'm not afraid to put a fourth coat on if necessary, just to make it look okay. And it's silly that these little scissors are actually really useful when it comes to trimming because it can get so close to it. Just going to relax here for a second before I put the last coat on and remind everybody that I was starting to and then stopped. For some reason, I just didn't finish telling the story about Dice and Dungeons and how we're a group of family and friends who run a Dungeons and Dragons show. And that's the really cool part about Dice and Dungeons is our show. And that streams with a live chat on Twitch on Sundays at 2, like 3 Sundays a month. You need to check social media, which I don't do, to find the exact timing of it, the calendar. Okay, but you can catch all of the old episodes on YouTube or listen to them as a podcast, and it's a great way to get to know the characters of the show, enjoy our banter, our hijinks, our shenanigans. Those are all really cool words that I have relearned. Or death-defying epic battles. We're about to have one. Our DM, Alexis, is just an amazing character and voice actress, and so she really brings the show alive and makes sure that we as players are always in character as well, because that's really important in a D&D show, is to be your characters during the game and not the players. Although sometimes we become the players, and just when we start getting a little bit extremely anxious about a battle that we're in, or if we're trying to plan something before, putting it into the show. This stream, as I've said over and over, is started because we make our own dungeon tiles on the PLA printers and then paint them. And the decision was made really early on for some reason that if we're going to be painting dungeon tiles, we might as well show it as a stream. And so that got started. And when there weren't any dungeon tiles, and I started building models, I have done a big Ed Daddy Roth Fink Eliminator that no one cares about because no one likes big Ed Daddy Roth Finks anymore. I don't know why not, but they don't. But then I built a Renwall submarine, which was vintage kits from the 1960s. I know that they're vintage kits because I built one in the 1960s. I had 3 kits from which I used parts. I had to use the parts of 3 different kits in order to get one that was actually good enough to work with. Some of the parts are just, the injection molding didn't have enough plastic, and they were really badly distorted. And sometimes they just didn't fit together. But I got that together, and someday, I keep promising, someday I might actually pull it out again and show it to everybody, just to prove that it really does exist. I'm starting at the tail this time, just to paint it in the other direction, because I'm seeing some spots that I actually had missed. And then I was building an Apollo stack, and almost finished with it and just got stuck on the command module for reasons that you've heard about before. Down in there in case it doesn't get painted with the red. It's an important part because it's the cockpit. It's where Porco Rosso sits. And if that's not painted, it's really going to glare. It will show very badly. Someday, I will get back to the Apollo and actually finish that. Someday I should actually show people the things that I've finished, because I keep saying I'm going to show them and then I don't. And I'm sure that that raises suspicion about whether in fact they exist. So I'll say that once again. Someday I'll pull them out and show them to you to prove that they really do exist, but that day is not today. It will be some other day. Well, if you put a fourth coat on this, just to be sure that it's really nice and even and all. And then give it a slight wash with a brown ink. But each time a coat goes on, the better it looks. It's all really pretty even right now, as opposed to like the very first coat where it was very splotchy. It's not too many spots anymore. So I'm going to stop messing with it. It's a lesson. Oh, no, that was just a shadow. Okay. It looked like I kind of missed a spot, but it's just a shadow from the tape. A lesson that I have learned and relearned and unlearned over and over again is when to just leave it alone. And probably like 60% of the time, almost 2/3 of the time, when it's time to leave it alone, I don't, and something bad happens. Here, we'll just watch paint dry for a little bit. I clean the brush. So watch our Dungeons and Dragons show. It is really, really, really good. And you can watch this as well as I continue to make an excruciatingly slow progress on the next model, which is the Savoia S.21. On Monday, I'll take a look at this and see whether I need a fourth coat or not. There is a chance I will. If I do, I'll do that pretty early in the stream, and then I will unmask it. Okay, then I'll unmask it and clean up any paint that had gotten around onto the outside of it, because it will show under the red paint as a flaw. And I don't need a flaw. I just don't. I don't want one. And I will. I don't know. I'm not sure I can do terribly much more with this until I get the green paint that I need for the stripe on the tail and the wingtips. So I'm going to be testing the light green paint, but I'm pretty certain that just like the British racing green was too dark and too blue, that this will be too light and too yellow. And then I'll have to go searching. And while I go searching, which will be after I get back from this next trip, I will probably switch over and work on my desk size figure of my D&D character. I'll probably do that. The alternative would be to work on the minifig of the Porco Rosso that came with this model. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to work on my character figure. It was a Christmas gift. So there. So that's what I'll do. But work on the Savoia is probably going to be, I don't know. I probably paint the white stripe. Yeah, I'm going to have to put a fourth coat on here, it looks like. We'll see what it looks like when it dries. It's coming along pretty well, though. You can see, if you look at, this versus the first coat and the second coat, you can see some real differences. There's just a spot that's just a little lighter, and I'm not sure if that's just drying differently or what. I'll see on Monday, but I'm definitely putting a fourth coat on just to be sure. And then later on in the stream on Monday, I'll unmask it and do any essential touching up. There's like a little spot there on the tail that needs to be. I might even do some really fine tipped brush touching up if necessary. The other thing I want to do, I'm trying to remember that, is that the bracket here, this is where the supports for the wing, this attaches there like that eventually. Okay. I'm going to paint that metallic to make it look like, when you take this off, lift it up off, to make it look like it is a metal support structure for the wing, which would have made sense. That would have been inserted into the wooden body because the wood itself would have been too fragile. So I'll work on that. I might do that. No, I'm going to put the fourth coat on first. I saw is disappearing as it dries. I'll see. I'm not sure if I need a fourth coat. So what I said, I'll put a fourth coat on for sure. I lied. I'm probably not going to. There is. I'm going to do this. Just there's just little spots, two little spots that are bothering me. Okay, and so I'm going to touch them up with this little bitty brush. Spots that I'm just seeing here. One is right there. If I let it go, it'll be a thing. And the other is right back here. And okay, I mean, that's all it was. But that makes a big difference. I think I'm going to paint these metallic as well. It looks like there's actually, tempting to do that. I don't think you can see it, but right along here, there's like little rivets. So there's a support plate that would be made out of metal that would have been riveted onto the inside of the fuselage to support the vertical stabilizer, the tail. And there's actually a little bit of a raised plate with some rivets molded into it that I hadn't seen before. And wow, that would be, I think that would be beyond my ability to paint that metallic. I'll find out on Monday. But on Monday, I'm going to decide whether to put a fourth coat on or not, and then paint this the metallic color, probably duraluminum, and then use the little brush to do any touching up, because I might have to after I paint the metallic. And I paint these little raised surfaces metallic as well, and then decide whether to try to do the what are obviously support plates that were molded in, because whoever designed this was really paying attention to detail. I do. Did I bump that? Huh, of course I did. There, enough of watching paint dry. I'm also going to prime these. I won't be able to do any painting, but they'll be primed, and then I'll be able to take them off the cardboard. And yeah, do what'll need to be done. I'm just looking at this. There's these things are numbered because one goes on one side and one on the other, and I think they're the opposite sides actually. But I'll make sure that I match them correctly after it's primed. I'm going to put this very carefully in the waiting for Godot box. Cover it up with a paper towel. Put this here. Cover this up also with a paper towel. I don't need dust all over it between now and the time I prime it. Okay. Here, you can look at it while I wrap up. So I'm going to be wrapping up. I'm going to be back on Monday at more or less 10, running, the full 3 hours, getting as much done as I can on this model. And if I don't have the correct green, okay, I will be trying to find it, and then I'll make a decision about whether I want to just keep working on this. Okay, whether I want to just keep working on this, like I could do things like I could paint the fuselage, I could mask the fuselage and paint that red. I could mask the horizontal stabilizer. I don't have to mask it. There's nothing to mask. I could paint that red. I do that off screen, so it's not very exciting to watch anyway. I'm just looking at the paint chart here. Yeah, just 18 is red. What is 33? 33 is black. Oh, yeah. There's this little ridge around the canopy that is painted flat black. That's just like a soft coating. And then there's tons of little decals that go everywhere. Look at that. There's a decal for the filler nozzle cap. I hadn't noticed that before. Right there, I had noticed that the fuel filler cap is molded into the top of this section here. There's actually a decal that goes on it. It probably says something like, no, I can't read it. It's really, really tiny. I would need a magnifier. It probably says something. It's in Italian. Carcio something. It's like premium. Premium fuel, right? After these are primed, I could work on the floats. Well, I can continue to make progress on that, but it's going to be like with little fits and starts, I think, as I get a little bit of something done, but I can't do something else until I paint the red or I paint the green or something like that. So it'll be episodic and in between slow and hopefully steady and not disastrous progress on the Savoia. I'm going to either be working on me. This is Ulseth Ralph, the Furbog fighter. 4 times the mini size. But, yep, still a little cleaning up to do here. I'm going to look at this through the head magnifier and do a little bit of sanding and filing. I'm just seeing little bits of rosin left over, some rough edges and stuff from the printing process that I want to clean up. But I think I'm going to start working on this. It's not quite authentic. He's wearing heavy plate. The armor I'm wearing now is mithril plate, which could be the same thing. It could be the same it could look the same, except it's made out of mithril. Magic. It's magic and mithril. It's amazing. Although I don't know what the magic is yet. I just know that there's some magic in it. But I'm going to be painting it the Tishirnoon colors rather than just metallic with a wash. And the cape, I have to decide how to paint the cape. I want it to look really cool and flowing and stuff. But it should be kind of green. It should be greenish with silver or gold embellishments around the edges and the filigree. The inside is really hard to paint. I'm just going to be painting it like a dark gray color because it serves as a background for the model more than anything. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing on Monday. Is I'll be working on the Savoia as much as I can, and which could be the entire stream, just painting that little metallic bracket on the inside of the fuselage. Could end up taking forever if I mess it up and have to repaint with the tannish yellow, the desert yellow, depending on how much touching up I have to do. And then I'll be on a search for green paint, and hopefully everything will work out okay. But I'll see you on Monday, and then I'll be gone for a couple of weeks again, but then come back and continue work on the Savoia and some other things. And I've also got the Porco Rosso minifig. And at any moment, I could start working on that as well. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you all checking in this week to watch. I mean, there has been some progress. Look, there are airplane parts now. There are airplane parts that weren't here last week, but they are here now. And they're getting close to becoming an airplane. Sort of. Thanks, everybody. Be sure to catch our Dungeons and Dragons show. That's the most important thing. Please do that. If you are a follower, thank you. Yeah. If you're a follower, thank you. If you're not a follower, please become one. If you know anybody who would like to become a follower, please invite them. If you know people who don't want to become a follower, ask them to become a follower anyway. Go to YouTube and become a subscriber, and you can go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron and get access to DM notes and all sorts of other secret stuff. I'll be signing off now. See you on Monday, and I'll explain once again how things are not moving along here. See you then.